Well. I just watched Alien Earth episode 4, and this was another solid episode, albeit a bit slow, although I do think that it is setting up intriguing storylines and things that are going to be resolved later on this season. So overall, I did enjoy it. Right off of the bat, we see that the tensions are just arising between all the characters, whether it be like the brother who's obviously here and he's just caring about his sister. You have that like scientist on the right there who I feel like earlier on in the season I got the impression that he was more cold and he didn't necessarily care as much about the kids, but in this episode we really start to learn that he actually does. Obviously the lady scientist, she feels very motherly regarding the kids. The trillionaire CEO guy, he's obviously, in it for his own interests. It was cool seeing like everybody manipulating everything for their own personal gain. Like all that stuff was very interesting. We get back to this cyborg guy who's manipulating the Indian kid to steal the egg for him. I will say in some ways, I don't know, like I understand that he is a child inside of an adult brain and whatnot, but I feel like even for a kid, he was kind of being a little bit too gullible for me. For me to believe it, that he would even think about doing all of this stuff for this random guy that he just met who, from his perspective, tried to like kill them or whatever. However, it obviously became a lot more understandable once the cyborg guy started blackmailing him with his family. At that point, his motivations became totally understandable, but there was like a period of time there where he was even like trying to steal the egg, and I'm just like, why are you wouldn't be doing this for this guy. I just don't think you would be. It is also interesting to see that the cyborg, or no, what is this guy? Is this guy a fully, is this guy a cyborg, or is he a synthetic, or is he a, what do they call the, I already forgot what the three categories of machinery are. But is he like a full-on robot like David, or is he a human whose consciousness was put into the robot, or is he a cyborg, which is like a human with machinery parts or whatever? I don't know, but either way, this guy, he presumably he was listening to everything, to all the conversations between the Indian kid and the evil cyborg guy. So it's interesting to know that he knows everything that's going on, and this kind of goes back to everybody having their own missions and their own personal interests, to the point that it doesn't seem like this guy has alerted the tech CEO kid. So it is curious to see what that guy is plotting, why he's not ratting out the Indian kid. So yeah, we don't know where that's going. There was a really cool goat scene. This is a goat, right? Or is it a lamb? A lamb is a baby goat. Is this just a full-on goat? I don't know. Either way, they let the alien take it over, and it was very cool seeing how once the alien like took over the goat, you just immediately could tell by the body language that it was smarter and that it was like analyzing the situation, seeing how it's gonna try to get out. And it really is stuff like this that just makes me not feel bad for any of the characters in these types of movies and shows, where it's like, why are you messing around with this? Like, why? Just stop. Like, this thing is obviously going to figure out a way to get out and terrorize everybody on the island. Like, obviously. You think you're going to contain it? You're not. But either way, it was a cool scene. But I guess it is also just it's one of the things that these types of shows and movies are commenting on, which is just the hubris of humanity and the god complex that we have to think that, oh yeah, we're going to be the ones that that are fully able to control and manipulate, aliens and robots and AI. Like we're the ones that we're not going to let it get out of hand, when obviously that's probably not going to happen. And we're getting closer to that in real life than I'm comfortable thinking about. So I want to move on. Interesting to find out that these two characters are married. again. Like, this episode did a lot to humanize the guy on the left there. He always came off as colder to me, but he seems like he does care about the kids, and he's married to the scientist lady. So, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff with this girl as well. It seems like she was like traumatized to some extent when they went on the mission in the ship, and she's not taking it well. Like, she's, she assaulted the scientist lady, and it's one of those things where it's like, is this just like a normal reaction that a child would have to have an eyeball alien monster attack her? Or is this like a malfunction because she's a robot and not actually a child? It's like, how are we analyzing this? What are we going to do if it's deemed that she's not stable enough to allow to continue existing? These are all the like existential questions that I'm sure we're going to get into pretty soon here. Interesting scene where this like, what is he, an assistant? I don't even know. This like assistant guy, he starts like setting the terms with the brother, where he's like, just to be clear, she's not your sister, but if you do think that she's your sister, then you can stay here. But if you're going to stay here, you're going to work for us, and yada, yada, yada. And he's just basically like, in very clear terms, laying out that you are completely cucked here. You have no authority. You're going to report to us or whatever. So yeah, obviously these aren't great people. Although it's interesting to see that, Wendy is a character who is clearly being manipulated, but I don't think she's entirely stupid, right? Like, I don't think that Wendy believes that the CEO guy like actually cares for her. I don't know if she actually believes that, that these people are like fully altruistic or anything like that. I think that she is starting to come around to realizing what is going on and how, like, she has to play ball in order to get things, like having her brother around. So it's going to be interesting to see how she evolves. Obviously, she's in vague competition with the other girl, even though Wendy doesn't necessarily know that, but like the other girl has started to figure out that she needs to suck up to the CEO, and she needs to prove herself for him and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see the kids just very much like, they're becoming more independent. Like, this kid, he's like wanting his own name and stuff, and he's wanting to actually become a scientist. It's like they're really setting the stage for these kids to like either, start fighting with each other, to start standing up to the company and the corporation and whatnot. So it's interesting to see where these kids are going to end up. Probably going to see them fighting each other or something, and yeah, very, very curious to see where that all goes. Seems like the Indian kid is gonna use the brother to get the egg or the alien creature or whatever. So that's not gonna go over well in the next episode. And we're setting up Wendy to be like a mom to the aliens, or they like Wendy. They like chose her. She was like petting the xenomorph or something. So it'll be interesting to see where that all goes. And it again, don't necessarily spoil it for me in the comments, but I'm just espousing here out loud because, as I mentioned in my previous video, I'm going into this only having seen Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I've not seen any other Alien movie. I did play some of Alien Isolation, but I didn't even finish that game. I'm just curious, like how, but again, don't spoil it. I'd rather find out to see if any of this is explored in future projects, but how are they like getting to the point here in the timeline where they have the alien here on Earth? They have cyborgs that are able to just straight up beat the xenomorph in a fight. They have zappy guns that are able to incapacitate xenomorphs. It's like, How are we gonna get like is the ship that like Ripley is in? Is she? Did they just decide to not bring on the super powerful Zappy gun? Do they just not have like synths or you know or robots that are able to fight the xenomorphs? It's like how is it that they're having trouble with the xenomorphs in the future? I don't know. I'm just curious. Like I feel like this show does do kind of a bad thing to the franchise in that it kind of nerfs the power of the xenomorph, but maybe that's just something that they've already touched on in previous Alien movies, but I just haven't watched them because I decided to consume all of this in chronological order. So anyways, I'm just thinking out loud. You don't need to tell me because I'd rather find out for myself. Either way, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.